I grew up in a Gaelic-speaking community, the village of Back, which is on the east coast of the island of Lewis. Almost all of my contemporaries, certainly in primary school, were Gaelic speakers.
I grew up on the Isle of Lewis in the district of Point, and I spoke Gaelic before I spoke English. My dad was a Gaelic speaker, a native Gaelic speaker, and my mother was from the town. She wasn't from the country, so she didn't speak Gaelic, but he taught her Gaelic as my older brother was growing up. So it was Gaelic we had in the household from when I could speak.
Gaelic was my first language, and then I was educated through Gaelic medium education in primary school.
Yeah, I grew up speaking Gaelic. My whole family speaks Gaelic, first language, so I technically learnt English in school.
I was born in Aberdeen, and I moved to the Isle of Lewis when I was 3. My mum's from Alloa. My dad, he actually lives in the house he was born in. He's from Ness in the Isle of Lewis, so he had Gaelic. I would say that was probably my first language in between English and Gaelic. So I grew up with Gaelic and went to school through Gaelic medium.
I applied for a contract as a researcher in July 1988, and it was a researcher on a new youth strand of programmes, and it was a 6-month contract, and I started in September 1988, almost 30 years ago. As a researcher, I was looking for stories and ideas, doing a lot of phone bashing and contacting all the young people I knew that spoke Gaelic, my contemporaries. I did a little bit of presenting, which was awful, but what I loved was talking to people and finding out things about people and sharing stories. So that was, I kind of quickly understood what I loved doing and probably what I was best at doing.
I always sort of knew that I wanted to work in media, so because I spoke Gaelic, there's a children's radio programme called Alec that Radio na Gael do, and when you are in a Gaelic medium school, you're quite often asked to take part in that programme, and from there I did wee bits and pieces for them. I used to do like news and features and things when I was a teenager. So I did a year's placement with an indie down in Glasgow, a Gaelic indie, so that's kind of how I got into it.
My first job in television, I was a writer. Joined the BBC 10 years ago as a subtitler/researcher. A very glamorous job.
I was very fortunate that the year that I graduated in the summer of '08, that the Gaelic channel was being set up that year, and it launched in September. So there were quite a few jobs going, and I was very lucky to basically graduate, and then a month later I got a job at the BBC in BBC Gaelic.
Well, my dad used to be, in fact is still involved in Gaelic television and media, so growing up I kind of was among it, and I went to the conservatoire at SMD in Glasgow, and luckily, just by chance, BBC Alba were looking for a continuity presenter for the summer. I'd handed my CV in for something else, and it turned out that they were looking for this, and I jumped at the chance and ended up staying on for 3 years after that. So it was kind of an accident, but I was very lucky.
A number of years ago here in St Mary's, we were deciding that we wanted to have a Gaelic week in school. So at that point, within Glasgow, there was a quality improvement officer who worked with schools. So we contacted her and she gave us a bit of advice about how going about it. And she came into school and worked with our children. Same with the things that we do at assembly, singing songs, playing some games with them in Gaelic. And we were working with the Gaelic school at the time for that, and we invited parents along to that.
I think making Gaelic available to those parents that wish their children to be educated in the medium of Gaelic, or to learn a little bit more about the language, is really a vital part of ensuring that the wider Scottish population know about the language and know the cultural value and the contemporary value of the language, and that we share it, that it's an asset.
I'm not sure if it should be compulsory. I think it should be encouraged, yes, and I think it's becoming more popular is the right word, but certainly more and more schools are trying to bring it into their curriculum in some way. Then I'm certainly in our local schools, I'm aware of quite a few teachers that have been on courses and are bringing it in, and certainly that's something that within Glasgow City Council they're encouraging.
I remember meeting somebody once on a flight to Ireland. I was going over there for work, and he'd been living in Scotland for about 4 years, and I was the first person he'd ever met who could speak Gaelic, and he was telling me about how it was compulsory in Ireland that they had to I think you couldn't get into university or something like that at one time if you didn't do Gaelic. And I was just kind of thinking, why are we not doing that? So I think it definitely should be compulsory, yeah.
I think it would be great if we had Gaelic as a compulsory language for children in Scotland. I don't see there being any disadvantage to it. Even if it wasn't Gaelic, I do think children should be brought up bilingual, because studies have shown that children who are bilingual actually have like a greater kind of cognitive ability.
I actually thought we excelled more in English than we did with the folk who were just mainstream English, because they were purely focusing on the one thing, whereas we were able to multitask, and I think that helps with the brain. And yeah.
I learnt Italian with my head teacher in primary school. I think it was primary 6 and primary 7, many years ago, but I'll still remember some phrases, and I think that's what learning a language at that early age then gave me a passion for doing it as I moved through school, my own career, and then when I became a teacher, that was something I was always interested in.
Making things compulsory can be a negative thing at times. So I think it should be about choice and having that choice freely available.
When children from non-Gaelic speaking families are entered into a Gaelic school, I think it should be compulsory that the adults agree to learn some of the language, just in order to, it's so important that the child speaks Gaelic at home as well as at school. It really does help develop their language skills, their conversational skills. How you go about doing that, I'm not sure, but I do definitely agree that it's something that should be done.
It's very difficult to learn the language. I mean, even folk who are fluent in it still find it difficult to understand why there's just like, we've got the genitive case and masculine and feminine words, and it's very difficult.
I have some friends that have children at Gaelic school, and if they're not fluent speakers or they're not brought up with the Gaelic language, it's very difficult to support your child in learning something new without having some of that knowledge yourself. It would just be the same for us helping our children with maths. If we weren't literate in maths, so we would do something about it. So yes, definitely I think they should be encouraged, and I know that's something that does happen. You know, they offer classes to parents to help them with that.
It's a really big step, and as a parent you would want to support your child through that process. And again, it is about sharing what is a really core part of what it means to be Scottish. And I think for the future of the language and the future health of the language, we need people across Scotland to learn a little bit more about the language, and maybe through that learning that they will have an interest to actually become active learners and become more aware of what the language means and how it is a really vital part of a modern and contemporary Scotland.
It's an amazing thing for non-Gaelic speaking parents to be putting their kids into Gaelic medium education. There's only things to be gained from it. There's nothing you can't gain from doing that. If the parents want to learn, that's great, that's another benefit, but I don't think it should be compulsory. There should just be more of a support network for the parents so that they've got the tools to be able to help with homework or whatever.
Sometimes when something is quite alien to us or foreign to us, we can't understand it or empathise with it. So always when I do come across a negative comment, I try and explain that that it's not something that can be switched on or off.
You're so used to people kind of talking about the Gaelic signs, and the most recent one is the police cars now have the Gaelic for police on the cars, and I mean, you get it all the time, but it's just water off a duck's back, because it doesn't matter what they say.
We're not that fussed about Gaelic road signs. Like, we don't think that that's going to help our language, but that's a decision that's been made by non-Gaelic speakers. So it's like, it's not something that we've campaigned for.
The only road signs that get changed, or train station signs, are the ones that are getting changed anyway, and they add Gaelic to them. And when you say they add Gaelic to them, what they're actually doing is adding English to them, because 90% of them are originally Gaelic names. So what it is it's literally one line of text that's being added, and that only costs the ink. That's all it is.
Why are you speaking a dying language? Oh, you speak Gaelic, you must be a tutor. All this kind of negativity, but it's just a language that's spoken up in the islands, and that's where it should stay, and it'll just peter out.
I think a lot of it comes from us not educating our population and and embracing Gaelic as a really rich and vibrant part, not only of our history, but of modern 21st century Scotland.
It's got a particular effect on Americans. I think it's really popular over there. So I notice a lot of social media activity, a lot more around Gaelic from that side of things, and people who weren't really interested or didn't know about it before. So I think it's only a good thing, really, that it's getting to people who had never heard of it before.
I think it gives Gaelic a platform and it raises awareness as well, because I don't think folk who maybe perhaps aren't from the islands, they assume that it's not a Scottish language and that we didn't all speak it, but we did at one point in time, and that's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I sit next to the producer of Learn Gaelic, the website. She's been just inundated with messages on her site and on their Facebook. So it's definitely raised the profile, raised awareness, and yeah, I think she's definitely, from what I get from her, a lot of people are taking an interest and wanting to learn Gaelic. So it's only a good thing in my eyes, definitely.
I think it's a very good thing, and I think more of it is good, because it gives Gaelic a definite setting in Scotland's history, whereas most things that are about Scotland, it's not even considered. Braveheart had 10 words maybe of Gaelic when the main characters were Gaelic speakers, and that was their first and foremost language. And so there's a little bit of whitewashing of Gaelic's impact or role in Scotland.
I think anything that shows, you know, the Gaelic language in a good light is something that will make it more popular and make them more aware of it. Certainly, you only have to look on social media or on the internet, and that's something that I use a lot when I'm teaching Gaelic here in St Mary's as well. And you see lots of comments from people throughout the world, you know, Canada especially, and different parts of the world who they have watched something like that and they are aware that there is another language that has been in the past and is still being spoken throughout Scotland, and it makes people aware of it. And anything that is out there that shows that we have this background and how it still features in our day-to-day language and place names, and even, you know, Glasgow just now, you see it. You see Gaelic signs, you see it on police cars, ambulances, all of those things are around. So yes, any programmes or television that are encouraging that can only be a good thing to show the different background, the cultural heritage that Scotland has.
In terms of raising the profile of the language and increasing awareness and the number of people that are inquiring about learners, I think we have seen an increase. Part of our partnership within BBC Alba is a website called learngaelic.scot, and we see quite a lot of questions coming from the States around about historical matters, and the reference is always back to Outlander. I think referencing the language within popular culture is a really, really potent way of really increasing awareness about the language, and then maybe people will learn a little bit more of it and use it.
Oh my goodness, that's totally put me on the spot. Oh, that's really hard.
I like the music programmes, to be honest, because I'm kind of on that scene as well. So yeah, Shedham is one of my favourite ones.
My favourite programme that I've ever seen on BBC Alba was just a few months back over New Year there, and it was called Sulishka, The Hunt. And it's the kind of programme you will see nowhere else in the world, and that's why I was really proud of it. It's set in my home area in Ness in the Isle of Lewis. Every year, a group of about 10 men go out to hunt seabirds and baby gannets. I say baby gannets, that's really cruel. They're young gannets. They salt them and they bring them home, and it's a delicacy. It's disgusting to some people, but it's, you know, it makes me salivate even just thinking about it. But it is British, but you wouldn't feel like it was Britain.
I'll go for the safe option, but it probably is as well. I mean, Yorpa is something that we're really proud of because it does attract so many non-Gaelic speakers, and Gaels appreciate it too, so it ticks all those boxes for us.
People quite often say, oh yeah, BBC Alba, it's actually quite good. It's like they don't think it's going to be any use, that it's just Gaelic programming that's not going to be of any standard or any sort of high quality. But yeah, we always get good comments about what we've got.
A lot of English speakers actually find our programmes and the content more interesting than what they would find on other channels. And it really depends on what kind of person you are. We have a lot of programmes for folk maybe that are interested in farming, and it's very specific. So we have a lot of viewers down in Northumberland, places that are big on farming and things like that.
Quite often when I tell people that I work for or in Gaelic television, you know, if I don't know them or whatever, they might say, oh yeah, I don't actually speak Gaelic, but I've seen whatever on the channel and I really enjoyed this, or, you know, so you do get kind of the odd positive comment.
Sport, definitely, when I'm ever around in company of non-Gaels, and they ask what I do and I say I work for the Gaelic channel BBC Alpha, pretty much all of them, their first reaction is, oh, I haven't watched the rugby on that, it's great.
Documentaries, because we subtitle all our adult programming, I suppose telling a story in pictures and words is accessible. We tell a lot of contemporary Scottish stories through the medium of Gaelic, but we do subtitle them in English. So making our programmes accessible is a really, really key way of ensuring that we make the channel as inclusive as possible for everybody.